Hi guys, so I thought this would be the best time to talk about something that I want to talk about and make a video about for quite a while. It doesn't have to do with video games. If you can't tell by now, it's about Steven Universe, which is a cartoon, if you didn't know. Sorry if you can hear my fan in the background. It's a little heat in my room, so I apologize. They kind of just hit a, sort of, the shit kind of hit a fan recently in the last episode, so I thought this would be a good time to talk about it. I won't talk about spoilers until the end. I just kind of want to get my thoughts out loud. So I'll just kind of say this as frank as possible. I like it. I like it a lot. Like, I've always liked Steven Universe, and this hasn't really changed anything. The newest episodes were very cool, and I really like how they're doing the story, and I've liked the way they're playing out the story for a while now. Everything's very character driven in Steven Universe, so it feels cool to kind of have these things come up about the characters, and it's just been really cool. I was just gonna say, and I mean, I've been following the show since it started, so I'm pretty deeply invested in these characters by now, and as kind of shallow as it is in terms of like critique wise, I've had a lot of fun with the show. I think it's just a very fun show. I think it does a lot of cool, unique things that I'll talk about in a minute that I really enjoy about the show, I guess, like just sort of some story ideas and stuff that I don't normally see in cartoons, especially Western cartoons, so we'll talk about them. So basically, I'm just going to talk about a few unique things that I do like about Steven Universe, talk about the ending, might talk about some things that were kind of bothering me about, like, people talking about the show, but I'm not going to rant. I just want to talk about it because I like it. So, the first thing I want to talk about with the show in general is everything is in Steven's eyes, which is like, oh yeah, obviously, like, a lot of shows do that. You'd be surprised. Not a lot of shows actually do that. A lot of times you will see, like, a meanwhile shot of a character or something. I don't know if you've noticed, but they never do that in Steven Universe. Everything you see is in Steven's perspective, basically. If there's something going on, Steven's on the screen somewhere. Important scenes where Steven's not even involved. There's a reason why he's seeing it. Even, for example, in the end of season 1 with what's it called, the song, Stronger Than You, Garnet is fighting somebody in a different room, and they make it a point to show that Steven is watching the fight from, like, a security camera in another room. Like, they make sure there's, like, a scene of you seeing that, so you know that, like, you're not disconnected from Steven ever, which is really crazy, and they're very good at it. It's not just like a sort of an idea that they have, but they never really, like, keep up with. It is genuinely kept up with, and it's never really dropped. I think that's very admirable. A lot of shows kind of have a problem with that, where they don't, like, they'll establish some sort of I don't know, like, story motif or, like, direction. For example, this is a very different show like Parks and Recreation. That show kind of had this sort of office, documentary sort of style. They ended up, like, dropping it and, like, very, like, subtly sort of just slowly dropping it over time because it was more convenient to do it other ways. But Steven Universe definitely wants to keep within its, like, the way it's established itself, which I think is pretty cool. And there's a lot of cool scenes because of it. The viewer knows as much as Steven knows. So when information is, you're being told information, you feel like the same sort of emotions as Steven, which is a pretty important thing when it comes to media. I've talked about this with video games too. When the player or the viewer, I use the same player, when the viewer is sort of in line with the main character that you're kind of the POV, it sort of has this, like, connection that you don't normally get from just a normal story. I think that's really cool, and obviously this is, like, something maybe storytellers. I'm not a writer or a storyteller in many ways. I guess you could say I'm a storyteller in some ways. I still do art and stuff like that, but I mean, I'm not professional in any way. Like, this is obviously just coming from, like, my opinions and what I've observed. But I think this is cool, and I don't think a lot of series do it, and if they do it, it ends up like they drop it or it's not consistent, but the show does it consistently, and the relationship between you and Steven is very cool, and because you're always in Steven's eyes, he has a very kind of slow, natural character progression, which I think is one of the strongest points about that show. Is Steven specifically's character growth and character development is pretty good and very just, I don't know, well done. It seems like you're experiencing the most important parts of Steven's life, so that's why he's changing so drastically, which is really cool. I again, I have so much fun with that kind of stuff. It's really nice to like just kind of have that, be invested. Like, I love liking a show like this, which I'll talk about this more in a little bit, but I love liking a show like this because I'm allowed to be emotionally invested in it, and it's fun being emotionally invested in a show, especially when you're not like disappointed immediately. Like, it's hard. It's a personality by, person by person basis kind of thing. Again, I'll talk about this in a bit. I won't rag on it too much, but yeah, that's the thing. Second thing I want to talk about, I don't want to get too distracted. Second thing I want to talk about is the way the story plays out. Its information is pretty cool. Like I said, you only know as much as Steven knows, so they kind of keep things hidden from you, and they like foreshadow things. And the twist in the newest episode, the plot twist that a lot of people, I guess, don't like or something. Some people, obviously, there's a lot of people that like it, but I've seen some people complaining about it. It was actually pretty well foreshadowed. There's a lot of scenes people are pointing out now that like have a way deeper meaning when when you know the actual plot twist. And the Crooniverse, the people of the fuck, I just thought I said that wrong for a second. Yeah, the Steven's Crooniverse, the crew that's in charge of Steven Universe, they probably had so much fun putting all these foreshadows in, and I love that in a series. I love when you can kind of see the personality coming out in more than just like, the art style or something. When you can see it coming out in like the twist, that's like a really cool thing. You can tell that the creators of Steven Universe are having fun with the viewers, and I think that's really nice. That's like something that, I don't know, like a lot of people say stuff like that with Avatar: The Last Airbender. You can tell that the creators just have a huge passion for this, and you can tell their love for their own series, which is like beautiful. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? That's like what I strive for with my stuff too. I want people to know that I enjoy this just as much as I guess they do, which I mean, in a case where people do enjoy it, that's what I would want, because it's a job, obviously, and you're trying to please people, but it's still a created thing made by somebody. So it's nice to see that, and I think it's a cool thing about Steven Universe. I always like when shows do the whole like sort of giving you little bits of information in every episode, and then like it all kind of makes sense in the end. It's like, it's sort of a fun little thing that you can do as a creator if you have your story planned out like thoroughly. You can kind of like either foreshadow stuff or just kind of like only give the viewer a little bit of information so they're able to kind of like theorize. And the plot twist was very theorized. It was kind of like a joke. It was like people said it all the time, but like no one thought it was true, or maybe some people thought it was true, but it was kind of one of those things that you wouldn't think they were gonna do, but they did it anyway. Again, I'm not like mad about it. But yeah, there's just a few little story things in Steven Universe that I really like. Also, Steven Universe is visually amazing. That is one of the most like visually captivating shows I've like seen in a long time. They do a lot of cool, unique things with the scenery. In the newest episode, especially in the second newest episode, that like the one that came before the newest one. I think the newest one was like a two-parter, so the first part of the two-part thing. There was a scene when they were basically seeing a full projection of like the world around them, but their shadows and like the lighting was still in the lighting of the room they were originally in. It's just projecting a screen around them, and like it was so cool looking. It was such a great attention to detail. It was something that like I don't think a lot of people would take note of, but they kept showing these like shadows, like these like long shadows that were like going up against like a fake wall. And it was like the coolest looking thing in the world to me. I don't know why. It was so smart, and the show is just a super like nice to look at. It was one of the gripes that I had for a while was the storyboard artists were very different from each other, so the show was a little inconsistent. I'm sure you've seen the memes around about it. But they've recently got their footing. The show is it's been pretty consistently good and like just consistent in general, especially the last 5 episodes that just came out. They were all very consistent, and I like it. I like it when it looks consistent. There is definitely a certain style and look of Steven Universe that I do really love, and I'm sure many people have said it to me, and it's pretty obvious that my art style is kind of similar to Steven Universe in some ways, and I wouldn't say I would say I take inspiration from it, but I wouldn't say the art style was completely inspired by Steven Universe. I've been drawing in my art style for well before Steven Universe was out, so it might have just been kind of like, I look at Steven Universe and I'm like, yeah, that's very appealing looking, so obviously there might be some sort of subconscious that's like, hey, I should draw like that too, but I'll say it, I'm never like, I gotta study Steven Universe's art, like, I wouldn't do that. It's nice looking. I would study its backgrounds and stuff and its lighting, because they do some really fancy and cool things with that. And the music, oh god, I don't even get me started on Steven Universe's music. I'm sure you've heard about it, but man, the music is like top tier in my opinion. The musicians that do that show are amazing. You should definitely follow them on SoundCloud. I don't know their SoundCloud on the top of my head, but you can just Google search it. They're great, and the music in the show is wonderful. They sometimes have musical numbers that are really good most of the time. The most recent one that was in one of the newer episodes was actually really nice. And there's one song in the series called Here Comes the Thought. That song is so good. That's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, cartoon musical number of all time. I love that song. It's such a good song with such a really good theme and meaning behind it that's super relatable. I could gush about that song forever. I've listened to it like a million times. The art is amazing in it. It's directed by the Studio Trigger guy. It's just friggin' awesome. That song is just so good. It's one of my favorite parts about that show in general. My favorite scenes. Yeah, I'll talk about the ending now. So, too long didn't watch. I like Steven Universe. I very much enjoy it. I'm a fan of it. I've been a fan of it. I think it does a lot of unique and interesting things for the genre. I think it's kind of important in a lot of ways. Obviously, that's a very loaded statement, but I do think that it's a show that if it does well, more will spawn like it, which means only better things from it. The shows that are getting popular right now on Cartoon Network are like Teen Titans Go and stuff. So showing the support for something like Steven Universe, which is very, creator oriented. It's a story in a world created by somebody. It's not just like toy selling franchises coming together and making memes like Teen Titans Go is. To show that these things can do well makes my life a lot more promising, because that's the kind of stuff I want to do. So maybe in my head it's important, and I would love it if some other people thought that way too. Anyway, let's talk about the ending. So, spoilers here, whatever, fuck, if you want to keep watching, it doesn't matter, it's not that ridiculous. So the newest episode, you kind of got foreshadowed this a little bit, but you saw like a vision of like Pearl killing Pink Diamond, which is a big deal, and then it's like, whoa, and then you find out that it wasn't Pearl, it was an elaborate setup by Rose, because Rose is Pink Diamond, and she faked her own death, and it's like, yeah, like, that was a huge theory that Rose is Pink Diamond, or Steven is Pink Diamond, and it's true, and I think that's pretty cool. I probably would have guessed that if you were to like really sit down and be like, we're going to talk about this, what do you think the plot is going to be in Steven Universe? I probably would have been like, Rose is probably going to be Pink Diamond or something. It kind of makes sense in like way more than one front, and they foreshadow it a lot, and it's actually really cool. What I think about this ending, or this plot twist, again, I think it's fine. I don't think it's like the most ridiculous plot twist. I heard some people saying that it makes Rose a Mary Sue. I don't really think that's the case. It's still like a selfish act on her part, while she wanted like, whatever, the freedom of yada yada yada. It just doesn't really feel like Mary Sue-y. People are like, I really wanted to kill somebody, and it's like, I just add a character. It doesn't mean like, Mary Sue doesn't mean anything, but like, it's dumb. Like, why would you want that character to be like a villain? Like, there's no redeeming them if they've killed somebody. I understand that, like, I don't know, like, it just seems so weird to me. That is not the term I would describe that as. Maybe like you could be like disappointed that it's as like obvious as it is, but complaining that she's a Mary Sue is a little weird to me. I've seen some people saying that like it was super obvious, or that, you know, it was really disappointing, it should have been something bigger, they didn't spend a lot of time with it. I can kind of see where they're coming from with that. It was pretty obvious in a lot of ways. Again, if you sat me down and asked me, like, think about it, what do you think the plot twist would be, I probably would think about it for a few seconds and be like, oh yeah, probably Rose's pink diamond. That makes a lot of sense. And it does make a lot of sense, which is part of why it's the way it is. Like, it just makes a lot of sense. It's been foreshadowed. It's something that they wanted. They wanted people to theorize and figure it out over time, so when it happens, it can still be like, holy crap. You could be like, oh my god, I guessed that. That makes sense. Like, everything makes sense now, sort of thing, which is fun. I think that's a genuine, cool emotion that not a lot of cartoons go for, and it's cool. I remember thinking the same thing with Gravity Falls. A lot of people were disappointed with the plot twist of Gravity Falls, but I thought the plot twist, I won't spoil it, but I thought the plot twist was pretty cool. And it's the plot twist that has to do with Stan, by the way. I thought the plot twist was pretty cool, and it was like pretty well foreshadowed, and some people are like, well, it was stupid because it came out of nowhere and stuff, and I can totally agree with the pacing of Steven Universe too. It felt like just stuff started to just kind of happen really fast. Like, you learn this thing and then immediately it's been told. You know, like, Pearl has been like hiding this thing from Steven forever, and when Steven has a hunch, he just like asks her about it. He's like, did you kill Pink Diamond? And she just like can't tell him, and it's just, it was like, it could have been paced a little bit better. I'll give it, you know, I'll say that much, I guess. But I can't judge it that harshly. That's like nitpicking. I thought it was cool, and like I genuinely liked watching it. I was excited. Me and my friend were watching the episodes. We were like, fuck, like, we need to keep watching. We were like, this is getting cool and stuff. We had genuine reactions. It was a fun time. I genuinely think this show is really cool, and obviously, again, a word that people toss around a lot that doesn't have a lot of weight to it unless you talk about it. It's a lot of fun. It's a very like entertaining show in a lot of ways. I genuinely like it. I also think, and I'll be completely honest, I do think it's a show that's important, quote unquote. It's a show that should get recognition for what it does. You don't have to like it. I don't even expect you to be like, this is what it should be like. You could totally have your opinions on Steven Universe. You can have your opinions on what it's like, what it's ending. I personally enjoy it, but I do think, like, lambasting it for like not being the way you want it to be, or nitpicking the plot twist and being like, it was a super obvious plot twist, this is bad, I'm dropping the show now because of this, is kind of showing that these kind of shows don't work, because when they don't meet the expectations of, you know, crazy hyper fans, they're just gonna do poorly. I swear, like, people who are dropping the show because of it, it's like, I don't know. If you've watched it up to now, I don't see why you would just drop it. It's not that much different. Like, it's, people have been saying it's been like steadily getting worse, and I don't really agree to that. I guess to each their own, but it doesn't really. It seems like it's in the same kind of like spirit and style it started out with. It just kind of has gotten more story driven. So if you don't like the story of Steven Universe, that's fine. But I do think it's important for shows like this to come out, so more people can express themselves with Western cartoons, because Eastern cartoons, they get to do that a lot. There's a lot of big story-driven cartoons that really people are just allowed to go crazy with, like, you know, shows like Fooly Cooley and stuff like that. Those shows are just like the creator's mind is just going off and being able to be as like creative and impulsive as possible. And I think letting Steven Universe be that way and be itself is important. You don't have to like it, but like saying it's bad is kind of not a good thing, I guess. It's hard to say, because I don't want to be like, you're not allowed to judge it, because you are allowed to judge it. But I think it's important to know kind of where it stands in the media in general. And I don't know. It's kind of a weird topic. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you want to complain about it, complain about it. I won't, but you can. I don't care. I'm just saying that I saw a lot of people kind of sort of dismissing it entirely because of little things that might just dismissing something that could be potentially, I don't know, bad to dismiss in some ways. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it. I'm getting kind of ranty. It's late, whatever. But yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble. I recommend watching it. It's a fun show. It's very cool. Has a lot of good scenery. Has a lot of good music. It's very creative. But if you think differently, then let me know how you think, because I'd love to exchange opinions. But as long as you're not a piece of shit about it, that's the end of that. Just don't be shitty and be respectful. I mean, like, just in general in life, be respectful. Don't be shitty. Treat things well. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'll see you guys. I'm gonna sleep.
When I see the way you act, wondering when